The wine glass was sitting there and he...
She never screams. She never throws tantrums. She doesn't need to. When Meryl Streep decides she's done with you, the message is delivered in the cruelest way possible: complete silence. For over 40 years, she's been Hollywood's undisputed queen, but her throne comes with razor-sharp edges. Cross her once, and you'll never get a second chance to explain yourself. From Sophie's Choice to The Devil Wears Prada, she's worked with legends like Tom Hanks, Robert De Niro, and Daniel Day-Lewis. But not everyone who shared the screen with Hollywood royalty got invited back to the palace. Some actors made the mistake of thinking talent alone was enough. They learned the hard way that working with Meryl Streep isn't just about delivering great performances. It's about meeting impossible standards that go far beyond acting ability. Today, we're diving into the 6 actors who somehow ended up on Meryl Streep's permanent blacklist. These aren't stories of explosive fights or public meltdowns. They're about something far more chilling: the quiet, surgical removal of people from her professional universe. What you're about to discover will change how you watch some of your favorite movies forever. When Dustin Hoffman stepped onto the set of Kramer vs. Kramer. Kramer in 1979, he was already a Hollywood legend. Fresh from The Graduate and All the President's Men, he brought his famously intense method acting approach to every role. But what he did to young Meryl Streep during filming crossed every line of professional decency. Streep was still relatively unknown, dealing with the recent death of her partner John Cazale, and desperate to prove herself in an industry that didn't always welcome women. She was vulnerable, grieving, and hungry for success. Hoffman saw that vulnerability and, according to multiple witnesses, exploited it ruthlessly. The stories from the set are genuinely disturbing. Hoffman would slap Streep during scenes without any warning, trying to provoke authentic, shocked reactions from her. He stayed in his angry character's headspace between takes, continuing to berate and emotionally manipulate her when cameras weren't rolling. Before particularly emotional scenes, he would deliberately upset her off-camera, using her real grief to fuel the performance. One crew member described watching Hoffman intentionally make Streep cry before a crucial scene, leaving her standing there with genuine tears of distress streaming down her face. Not from the script, but from his psychological warfare. Years later, Streep would diplomatically describe the experience as an education, but her carefully chosen words revealed the true cost of that Oscar-winning performance. The film was a massive success, earning both actors Academy Award nominations and giving Streep her first Oscar win. But something fundamental had shattered between them. In the 4 decades since that movie wrapped, they've never worked together again. Not in films, not on stage, not even in reunion specials celebrating the movie that made them both legends. During awards seasons and retrospectives, they've carefully avoided sharing stages or doing joint interviews. Their professional relationship became a masterclass in strategic avoidance that has lasted longer than most Hollywood marriages. For Meryl Streep, some lessons stick forever, and the lesson from Kramer vs. Kramer was that no performance, no matter how acclaimed, is worth sacrificing your dignity. Bruce Willis seemed like the perfect co-star for Meryl Streep's rare venture into dark comedy. Death Becomes Her had all the ingredients for box office gold: the queen of dramatic acting trying something new alongside the action star who had just conquered the world with Die Hard. But what looked like creative magic on paper became a disaster behind the scenes. The problem wasn't explosive fights or dramatic confrontations. It was something worse: complete creative incompatibility. Streep approached the role with her signature surgical precision, analyzing every line and rehearsing every gesture until it was perfect. Comedy, to her, was just another form of truth that required the same level of dedication as her dramatic roles. Willis brought an entirely different energy to the production. He was loose, instinctual, and comfortable improvising his way through scenes. His approach was all about natural flow and spontaneous reactions, the exact opposite of Streep's methodical preparation. Crew members described the tension as quietly uncomfortable rather than explosively dramatic. There were long, awkward pauses between takes as directors desperately tried to bridge the gap between Streep's careful preparation and Willis's spontaneous style. One production assistant compared it to watching 2 completely different movies being filmed simultaneously. The disconnect was obvious in their scenes together. Streep was delivering a carefully crafted performance, while Willis seemed to be making it up as he went along. She allegedly described his approach in private as winging it, which for an actress who views her craft as sacred was essentially unforgivable. The final film was visually stunning and cleverly written, but critics immediately noticed something felt fundamentally wrong about the chemistry between the two leads. They weren't acting together. They were acting past each other, creating parallel performances that never truly connected. When the promotional tour ended, so did any possibility of future collaboration. Streep never publicly criticized Willis, but her actions spoke louder than any words could have. She simply never worked with him again, sending a clear message about what happens when you fail to meet her standards. Jack Nicholson represented everything Meryl Streep wasn't as a performer: wild, unpredictable, and completely uncontrolled. When they were cast opposite each other in Heartburn, it should have been a fascinating clash of acting titans. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when unstoppable force meets immovable object. Nicholson had built his legendary career on controlled chaos. He improvised dialogue, changed emotional beats mid-scene, and brought an electric unpredictability that had made him one of Hollywood's most magnetic stars. His approach was pure jazz, loose, improvisational, and brilliant in its spontaneity. Streep's method was classical music, every note deliberate, every pause meaningful, every choice serving the larger emotional composition. She would arrive on set having prepared extensively for each scene, with detailed notes about character motivations and emotional beats carefully mapped out. Nicholson would show up ready to tear up those carefully laid plans and create something entirely new in the moment. What looked like creative freedom to him felt like professional disrespect to her. Where she found nuanced emotional honesty through preparation, he brought broad theatrical energy through improvisation. The clash was immediate and obvious to everyone on set. Crew members described watching two completely different performance styles collide, creating scenes that felt like they belonged in different movies. Streep wanted precision and control. Nicholson thrived on chaos and unpredictability. Years later, when asked about the experience, Streep chose her words with characteristic diplomatic precision. She described working with Nicholson as complicated, and when pressed for details offered only, "You never quite know what you're going to get with Jack." In Streep's carefully measured vocabulary, that was practically a scathing review. The film received critical praise, but even reviewers noted that the two leads seemed to be performing in completely different genres. There were no public fights or dramatic confrontations, just a professional chill that settled over the production and never lifted. When Heartburn wrapped, so did their collaboration, permanently. Tommy Lee Jones brought his trademark gruff intensity to Hope Springs in 2012, playing opposite Streep in a story about a long-married couple trying to reconnect. The cruel irony wasn't lost on anyone. Two actors who couldn't connect off-screen playing characters desperately searching for their way back to each other. Jones is famous for his economic approach to everything: words, energy, and emotion. He treats filmmaking like a job to be completed efficiently rather than an artistic collaboration to be savored. He doesn't do table reads, avoids rehearsals when possible, and keeps personal interaction to an absolute minimum. For most co-stars, this approach works perfectly fine. For Meryl Streep, who thrives on connection and collaboration, it was like trying to perform a love duet with someone who refused to sing. She wants to explore scenes together, discuss subtext, and find shared emotional truth with her scene partners. With Jones, she hit an impenetrable wall of professional distance. Crew members described a set where the two leads barely acknowledged each other between takes. While Streep would normally chat with cast and crew, building relationships and keeping the set's energy positive, Jones would retreat to his trailer or simply stand silently until cameras rolled again. When Streep would suggest trying different approaches or exploring alternate line readings, Jones would respond with stone-cold silence or a dismissive "fine." The lack of warmth wasn't just noticeable, it was suffocating. One insider described the dynamic simply, "She tried. He didn't." The professional distance extended far beyond the set. Press junkets were scheduled separately, joint interviews were kept to an absolute minimum, and there was never any sense that they'd developed the mutual respect that usually follows successful collaborations. When asked about their working relationship in later interviews, Streep's response was diplomatically devastating. She described Jones as a man of few words and said their collaboration was interesting. In Streep speak, interesting never means good. It means challenging in ways that weren't worth repeating. Ben Affleck and Meryl Streep have never actually shared screen time, but their professional Cold War has been playing out in public for years. It started with a single careless comment during Hollywood's most politically charged period, revealing just how quickly Streep can write someone out of her world, even someone she's never worked with. The incident happened in 2017 after Streep delivered her passionate Golden Globe speech criticizing then-President Donald Trump. The speech went viral worldwide, dividing audiences and dominating headlines for weeks. When reporters asked various celebrities for their reactions, most offered diplomatic support or careful non-comments. Affleck, with his typical bluntness, shrugged and dismissed her as overrated. He later claimed it was sarcasm, referencing Trump's original insult, but the damage was irreversible. In Hollywood, where perception becomes reality overnight, Affleck had just publicly disrespected the most revered actress of her generation. Streep never responded directly. She didn't need to. Her silence carried more weight than any comeback could have. The professional consequences became apparent gradually but inevitably. Industry insiders report that the two were once attached to the same political thriller, with Affleck set to direct and Streep attached to star. The project vanished without explanation. Despite sharing multiple Oscar seasons, award shows, and industry events, they've maintained a careful distance that speaks volumes. No casual red carpet conversations, no friendly industry panel discussions, no mutual praise in interviews. For two people at the absolute pinnacle of their profession, their paths cross remarkably rarely. Affleck hasn't escalated the tension or attempted any public reconciliation. But he also hasn't backed down from his assessment, occasionally making comments about actors who take things too seriously that many observers connect directly to his Streep remarks. For someone as strategically minded as Streep, that kind of public dismissal, regardless of intent, crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. In her carefully controlled universe, respect isn't just expected, it's absolutely required. Adrian Grenier learned the hardest lesson of all, that even supporting roles in Meryl Streep vehicles come with impossibly high expectations. In The Devil Wears Prada, he played Nate, Andy's boyfriend who was supposed to represent the film's moral center. But his relaxed approach to the character created problems that would haunt him for years. Grenier brought his signature laid-back charm to the role, improvising lines and treating scenes with casual confidence. For most productions, this natural charisma would have been welcomed and encouraged. But Streep had significant creative input on this film, and she expected everyone to match her level of preparation and intensity. The clash was immediate and obvious. While Streep analyzed every line with scientific precision, mapping out emotional beats and character motivations, Grenier seemed content to rely on natural charm rather than detailed preparation. To Streep, this casual approach felt like disrespect to the entire production. The tension showed up in subtle but significant ways during filming. Sources report that Streep actively pushed to have some of Nate's scenes reduced during editing, feeling his relaxed energy diluted the film's sharp, focused tone. When the movie became a cultural phenomenon and reunion discussions began circulating, Grenier's name was notably absent from all planning conversations. The exclusion became brutally official when sequel discussions ramped up years later. While Emily Blunt and Anne Hathaway were actively courted to return to their iconic roles, Grenier was never contacted. When he expressed genuine surprise about being left out during interviews, he was careful not to blame anyone directly, but industry insiders knew exactly why his phone wasn't ringing. It wasn't a dramatic exclusion filled with angry confrontations or public statements. Grenier simply found himself quietly erased from the Prada family. For Streep, it wasn't personal revenge. It was about maintaining the professional standards that had made the original film so successful. The message was crystal clear. If you can't match her level of commitment and preparation, you don't get invited back to play in her exclusive sandbox. No explanations, no second chances, just a permanently missing name on future call sheets. Looking at all these stories together, a clear and chilling pattern emerges. Meryl Streep hasn't spent 4 decades at the absolute top of Hollywood by accident or luck. Every choice she makes, from the scripts she accepts to the actors she works with, reflects unwavering professional standards that very few people can consistently meet. She's not temperamental or dramatic in the traditional Hollywood sense. She doesn't throw public fits, make unreasonable demands, or create chaos on film sets. Instead, she operates with quiet, surgical precision, systematically removing elements that don't serve the work or meet her impossibly high standards. Whether it was Hoffman's psychological cruelty, Willis's casual improvisation, Nicholson's chaotic unpredictability, Jones's emotional distance, Affleck's public dismissiveness, or Grenier's relaxed approach, each situation represented something that fundamentally conflicted with her vision of professional filmmaking. Her frequent collaborators reveal the real secret to her success. Look at her repeat partnerships with actors like Daniel Day-Lewis, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Viola Davis, and Tom Hanks. These are performers who match her intensity, share her commitment to craft, and understand that great art requires great discipline and mutual respect. The actors who didn't make the cut weren't necessarily wrong in their individual approaches. Hoffman's method intensity has created legendary performances in other films. Willis's instinctual style has entertained millions of people worldwide. Nicholson's unpredictability produced some of cinema's most iconic moments, but they weren't right for Meryl Streep's carefully curated professional world. Her silence isn't petty, vindictive, or ego-driven. It's strategic and protective. She's built a career that will outlast most of her contemporaries by being extremely selective about who gets access to her talent, time, and creative energy. In an industry where second chances are common and forgiveness is often financially motivated, Meryl Streep operates by completely different rules. Her standards aren't negotiable, her decisions are final, and her silence carries more weight than any public criticism ever could. Each of these 6 actors discovered that working with Hollywood's most respected actress isn't just about talent or box office appeal. It's about meeting a standard of professionalism that goes far beyond memorizing lines and hitting your marks. It's about respecting the craft, respecting your collaborators, and respecting the entire process of creating art. The consequences of failing to meet those standards aren't dramatic or explosive. There are no screaming matches, no public feuds, no tabloid headlines. Instead, you simply disappear from her professional universe. No explanations, no second chances, no dramatic reconciliations, just the quiet, permanent removal of your name from her consideration. Her approach has created a legacy that goes far beyond individual performances or box office numbers. She's proven that it's possible to maintain artistic integrity and professional standards without compromise, even in an industry that often rewards the opposite behavior. The silence she deploys isn't cruel or vindictive. It's simply selective. In a business built on relationships and repeat collaborations, being quietly removed from Meryl Streep's orbit is one of the most definitive professional statements possible. After 40 years at the top, Meryl Streep has mastered Hollywood's most devastating weapon: strategic silence. She doesn't need public feuds or dramatic confrontations. Her power lies in something far more permanent: the ability to simply erase people from her professional world. The 6 actors in these stories learned that crossing Streep doesn't create explosive drama. Instead, you just disappear from her universe. No explanations, no second chances, just the quiet removal of your name from her consideration. Perhaps that's true power, being so secure in your worth that you never need to explain why someone doesn't deserve another opportunity. For Meryl Streep, the loudest statement is the one never spoken, and the most devastating review is the call that never comes.